So हम लोग सर्वोपनिषद कर रहे हैं और बड़े बड़े श्लोक हैं और 2 हमने किए हैं। होपफुली आज तीसरा और चौथा दोनों ही हम लोग देख पाएंगे, प्रयास करते हैं। एक बार थोड़ा सा रिकैप देख लेते हैं कि उपनिषद शुरू कहाँ से होता है। उपनिषद अथर्ववेद से आया है और जिज्ञासा किया है शिष्य ने। कई सारी जिज्ञासाएं, कई सारे प्रश्न हैं जो शिष्य ने पूछे हैं और शुरुआत होती है बंधन क्या है इस बात से। फिर शिष्य पूछता है मोक्ष क्या है। उसके आगे प्रश्न है विद्या क्या है, अविद्या क्या है, जागृत, स्वप्न, सुषुप्ति और तूर्य, ये जो चारों मन के या कॉन्शियसनेस के, चेतना के तल हैं, ये क्या है। इसके आगे पंच कोशों के विषय में जिज्ञासा है। कर्ता, जीव, क्षेत्रज्ञ, क्षेत्र, इनके बारे में प्रश्न है। उसके पश्चात, और हमने पिछले सत्र में क्षेत्रज्ञ तक किया था, उसके आगे प्रश्न है साक्षी कौन है, कूटस्थ क्या है, अंतर्यामिन कौन है, प्रत्यगमन क्या है, परमात्मन, आत्मन और माया, ये क्या है। इतने सारे प्रश्न हैं। एक तरह से उचित ही नाम है सर्वोपनिषद, सब कुछ का संकलन है, अमलगमेशन है ये उपनिषद जो जिज्ञासा की है। और मैं ये सोचती हूँ कि जिस मन ने जिज्ञासाएं प्रस्तुत की हैं, वो मन स्वयं कितना शुद्ध हो रहा होगा, कितना उसका रेचन होता होगा। How much of catharsis or the entire process of purifying of the mind. To just speak in short, ऋषि ने जब बताना आरंभ किया तो वो कहते हैं कि बंधन क्या है। इस विषय में ऋषि कहते हैं कि आत्मन जब स्वयं को बंधा हुआ पाता है, क्योंकि वो इंद्रियों के द्वारा अब जीवन जीने लगता है, तो उसे बंधन कहते हैं। मोक्ष क्या है, इस अवस्था से बाहर निकल जाना मोक्ष है। अविद्या क्या है, वो सारी बातें जो आत्मन को जीव रूप होना प्रतीत कराती हैं, that which makes the Atman feel that it is an individual soul, वो अविद्या है। विद्या वो है जो आत्मन को इस स्थिति से बाहर निकालती है। इसके पश्चात हमने काफी विस्तृत रूप से चर्चा की थी जागृत, स्वप्न, सुषुप्ति और तूर्या के विषय में, जो 4 चेतना की अवस्थाएं होती हैं। और उसके बाद पंचकोश के ऊपर जिज्ञासा है, कर्ता कौन है। और यहाँ पर हमने देखा अहंकार, आई एमनेस, मैं, इसके विषय में। एंड देन वी प्रोग्रेस्ड फर्दर टू अंडरस्टैंड जीव क्या होता है, इंडिविजुअल सेल्फ क्या होता है। और अब हम पहुंचे हैं साक्षी तक। तो जो तीसरा श्लोक है, जो शुरुआत होती है, He who is the cognizer of the manifestation and disappearance, 2 बातें कह रहे हैं ऋषि। किसी भी चीज की अभिव्यक्ति, उसका मैनिफेस्टेशन, एंड डिसअपियरेंस, उसका गायब हो जाना। तो अभिव्यक्त होना और गायब हो जाना, ये दोनों हम जानते हैं कि माया के रूप है। तो ऋषि कहते हैं कि जो इस तथ्य में जीता है, जो ये भासता है हर समय, कॉग्नाइज करता है कि कुछ भी चीज जो है वो मैनिफेस्ट हो रही है और खत्म, डिसअपियर भी कर रही हैं, गायब सी भी हो रही हैं, of what? Of the knower, knowledge, and the knowable. He who is the cognizer of manifestation and disappearance of the knower, knowledge, and the knowable. अब ये ट्रिनिटी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. इनफैक्ट ट्रिनिटी is something that plays the role everywhere. So there is subject object duality, and subject and object are based on the fact that there is something that can be known. The subject can know the object and the object exists because of the subject. So there is this trinity happening. तो knower है जो subject है, जो करता है, knowledge है, विषय है, object है, and knowable है. तो जो जानने वाला है, जो करता है, वो किसके विषय में जानेगा? About what will it know? So then there is that object which is knowable, जिसकी गुणवत्ता है कि वो जाना जा सकता है. इसी को अगर हम इसका जो चौथा रूप यदि लेते हैं तो वो बन जाता है अज्ञेय. तो ज्ञान है, ज्ञानी है, ज्ञात है और अज्ञेय है. ज्ञात अज्ञात दोनों एक तरीके से एक साथ ही रखे जा सकते हैं, क्योंकि अज्ञात वो है जिसको कभी भी जाना जा सकता है, जिसको ज्ञात के भीतर लाया जा सकता है. तो जानने वाला है जो ज्ञानी है, जो जान रहा है. किस चीज को जान रहा है? तो ज्ञान है वो. और फिर एक है जो कि अज्ञात है, और इसके पश्चात आता है अज्ञेय, वो जो जाना जा ही नहीं सकता है. किसके द्वारा नहीं जाना जा सकता है? Who cannot know it? The one who lives in the limitation, the one who is the karta, the one who is the doer, the one who thinks he is the kshetrajna of this kshetra called body. So there is a limitation. That person cannot know. But the moment that entity dissolves and one moves up, then there is a possibility of knowing. तो यहाँ पर प्रश्न है कि साक्षी कौन है? तो ऋषि कहते हैं कि इस ट्रिनिटी को जो देख पाता है, उसके होने और न होने को जो जान पाता है, and is self-luminous, और जिसे स्वयं प्रकट होने के लिए, प्रकाशमान होने के लिए किसी की आवश्यकता नहीं है, वो स्वयं सेल्फ-ल्यूमिनस है, वो स्वयं ही प्रकाशित है. जो उस स्थान पर पहुंच जाता है उसे हम साक्षी कहते हैं. तो हमने विटनेस की कई बातें की हैं. We have talked about state of witnessing a lot. And here the Rishi is giving a clear definition of what is this state of witnessing. And he says, and this is so interesting. देखिए यहाँ पे द्वैत पूरी तरीके से काम कर रहा है. There is manifestation and there is disappearance. For us, they become the truth of life. They become the reality of life. But for Sakshi, this is very self-evident that, okay, this is coming and this is going, and hence, of course, this is not the reality. There is a nature of impermanence, intransience in all this. So this is how Rishi defines who the Sakshi is. When being perceived in an undifferentiated manner in the intelligence of all being. And there's some very interesting words. There is undifferentiated manner in the intelligence of all beings, from Brahma down to an ant. So who is this all being? ये all being कौन है? ब्रह्म से लेकर चींटी तक, और उस बीच में आप जो भी सोच सकते हैं, मतलब एक जो बहुत हमें बड़ा लगता है, इनफाइनाइट है, जो हमारी बुद्धि के परे है, जिसको हम जान नहीं सकते हैं, वो है ब्रह्म, जो स्वयंभू है, जो अचिंत्य है, जो अनादि है, अनंत है. वो है ब्रह्म। वहां से लेके चींटी तक, चींटी कौन है? एंड यूज बोथ दीज एज सिंबल्स, डू नॉट टेक देम लिटरली। चींटी प्रतिनिधित्व किसका कर रही है? हर उस चीज का जो बहुत सूक्ष्म है, जो समझ में भी नहीं आता है, जिसके अस्तित्व को हम महत्व ही नहीं देते हैं, that which we do not even count. So that whom we feel like worshipping, to that which we don't even count. So that's the range that the Rishi is drawing. And by that, all that Rishi is trying to say is that which is all encompassing. तो कर्ण कर्ण में जो हम कहते हैं, ऋषि बिल्कुल उसी को इंगित कर रहे हैं। तो ऋषि कहते हैं when being perceived in an undifferentiated manner. What is this undifferentiated manner? What is this undifferentiated manner? Let me ask this question. What do you get by undifferentiated manner?
I think it means undifferentiated means we are not differentiating. Everybody is same. The soul is the same. That is undifferentiated, and we are all different forms. But the inside one is undifferentiated. That is same in everywhere. Everything, like जिसमें भी तुम देखो, everywhere that God is there.
Which means now हमारे लिए ना कोमल जी ये बिल्कुल सतही बात है। हम बोलते तो हैं, लेकिन हमारे रोजमर्रा की अनुभव की अगर हम बात करेंगे तो ये हमारा सत्य तो नहीं। हमारे लिए हर चीज अलग अलग है। जो व्यवहार हमारा एक बच्चे के साथ होता है, वही व्यवहार दूसरे बच्चे के साथ नहीं होता है। जो व्यवहार हमारा उनके साथ होता है जिनको हम अपना कहते हैं हमारी परिभाषा में, वही व्यवहार हमारा दूसरों के साथ नहीं होता है। और कई बार हम स्वयं को भी इतना महत्व देते कि नहीं ये तो मुझे पसंद है, ये तो मैं ही रखूं, ये मैं किसी को नहीं दूं, या ये मुझे नहीं चाहिए, मुझे ये पसंद है, ये पसंद नहीं। तो मैं भी इतना ज्यादा प्रोनाउंस्ड होता है। तो हमारे जो रोजमर्रा का व्यवहार है उसमें अनडिफरेंशिएशन कहीं नहीं है। We live in differentiation. Our every moment passes in differentiation. And the moment there will be undifferentiation, then you will notice that there is a surge of compassion in you. And that will be a very normal phenomenon. Undifferentiation, compassion, you can say actually to be the byproduct of this undifferentiated behavior. You will automatically be able to relate with the other in their position, not because they are like that, but again getting back to Krishnamurti's word, first to see false as false, which is the differentiation, and then to see the truth in the false, that oneness, that thread of oneness in all. So when being perceived in an undifferentiated manner, in the intelligence of all beings, from Brahma down to an end, it resides in the intelligence of all beings, then it is called the Kutastha. So Rishi is defining, Rishi Kutastha होने की परिभाषा दे रहे हैं। कूटस्थ मतलब आत्मा में स्थित, आत्मस्थ। तो ये कब होती है स्थिति? जब हम आत्मा में यदि स्थित होंगे तो हमें हर चीज में आत्मन तो अपने आप ही दिखाई देगा ना, क्योंकि हम बसते ही हैं वैविधता में, वैरायटी में, because we live in variety, hence the entire world seems or is perceived by us as tremendous variety. So the moment this differentiation and variation, and very interestingly, you see the way human psychology has been captured. I remember when I was studying in NEFT, we were told that Arrow brand, it has got 30 shades in white. 30 shades in white. Imagine the differentiation of human mind, which can even see 30 shades of white itself. So that's the kind of differentiation. And this entire concept of mera wala pink and mera wala green, this is how this whole behavior of differentiation is used. The variety that today as consumers we experience, कि आप एक चीज खरीदने जाते हैं और इतनी वैरायटी दिखा दी जाती है और हमको पावर ऑफ चॉइस बताया जाता है, और हम ये भूल जाते हैं कि इस पावर ऑफ चॉइस में बेसिकली हमारा कोई पावर नहीं है। कोई बहुत अच्छे से समझता है कि मन कैसे काम करता है, क्या बिकेगा क्या नहीं बिकेगा। आप एक स्टोर में जाते हैं, वहां का पूरा अरेंजमेंट जो होता है वो इसी बेसिस पे होता है कि कौन सी चीजें हैं जो इम्पल्सिव बाइंग पे होती हैं, कौन सी एसेंशियल्स हैं, और उनको उसी के अनुसार प्लेस किया जाता है। एसेंशियल्स को स्टोर के बिगिनिंग में कभी नहीं रखा जाता है, क्योंकि यदि आपको चाहिए तो आप एसेंशियल को ढूंढते ढूंढते पूरे स्टोर का चक्कर लगाएंगे और वहां तक जाएंगे जहां पर वो सामान है। और इस बीच में आप जितने सारे स्टॉल्स को क्रॉस करोगे, the impulsive behavior in us, the one which gets attracted and influenced, it will keep picking up things. I remember it's some 10-15 years back story. A friend of mine was telling this to me with a lot of pride. यार कल हम लोग ना एक टूथब्रश लेने के लिए गए थे। उस समय malls and such stores where it was the beginning, some DMart kind of place he had been to. हम एक टूथब्रश लेने गए थे और हम 1500 की शॉपिंग करके आए। जो पूरा हिसाब किताब है that you buy 1000 rupees stuff, you get a gift voucher of 200, you buy 2500, you get a gift voucher of 300. It is nothing but playing around with this psychology which is so much into differentiation. क्योंकि जहां 800 की शॉपिंग हो जाएगी, 200 की शॉपिंग फालतू करते हैं ताकि और 200 की चीज हमें मिल सके। तो पहले तो हमने सड़ी पिक्चर की टिकट खरीद करके पैसे गवाए, अब क्योंकि टिकट खरीद ली है तो हम जा करके 2 घंटे उस सड़ी पिक्चर को देख करके वो 2 घंटे भी गवाएंगे। That is the kind of psychology that we live in. So the Rishi says that the moment you are able to perceive and in an undifferentiated manner, so all this differentiation goes off, which means your mind becomes very sharp on what you must see. अब फोकस क्लियर है, अब आपका मन 10 दिशाओं में नहीं भागता है। अब मन को पता है कहाँ पर सरेंडर होना है, कहाँ पर समर्पित होना है, कहाँ पर झुकना है। वो 10 दिशाओं में नहीं झुकेगा, और इसलिए उसको अनडिफरेंशिएटेड मैनर में इंटेलिजेंस इन ऑल बीइंग फ्रॉम ब्रह्म टू एंट, पूरे अर्थात पूरी सृष्टि में वो दिखाई देता है। जब ये अवस्था आती है तो उसे कूटस्थ कहते हैं। When standing as the means, so कूटस्थ स्पष्ट है सबको? कोई प्रश्न है यहाँ पर? Anything that you want to say साक्षी एंड कूटस्थ के विषय में?
ऋचा, आपने साक्षी अभी तक बताया नहीं ना?
साक्षी हमने कहा थी कि the one who is the cognizer of the manifestation and disappearance of the knower, knowledge and the knowable. हम जब ट्रिनिटी की बात कर रहे थे ना, ज्ञान ज्ञाता की, है ना, वहां पर जो इन सबको देख लेता है कि क्या भाषित हो रहा है और क्या भाषित नहीं हो रहा है, क्या अभिव्यक्त हो रहा है, मैनिफेस्ट हो रहा है और गायब हो रहा है, डिसअपियर हो रहा है, और ये सब वो देख पाता है और वो स्वयं से प्रकाशित है। वो ये सब इसलिए नहीं देख पाता है क्योंकि उसको कोई आके बताता है कि देखो ये है और ये नहीं है। उसकी स्वयं की प्रज्ञा इतनी जागृत है, वो स्वयं इतना सूक्ष्म देख सकता है कि उसे समझ आता है बहुत स्पष्टता से कि क्या है और क्या नहीं है, उसको ऋषि साक्षी कह रहे हैं। और जो इस सब अभिव्यक्ति और अनअभिव्यक्ति के बीच में जो ये सारी घटनाएं हो रही हैं, ये सब के बीच में उस कॉमन थ्रेड को देख लेता है, उसको कूटस्थ कह रहे हैं।
तो इसेंशियली
हाँ,
कूटस्थ की स्थिति के लिए साक्षी होना is a presupposition, right? You
yes,
can't be a
yes,
kutastha without being in a sakshi bhav, है ना?
एब्सोल्युटली। इनफैक्ट कूटस्थ होने का अगर आप साइड इफेक्ट कहेंगे या something that automatically happens when you move into this zone of being kutastha is साक्षी भाव। साक्षी भाव के आते आते व्यक्ति कूटस्थ होने लगता है।
Okay.
Then Rishi goes ahead to explain Antaryamin, internal ruler. And what does he say? He says, when standing as the means of realizing the real nature of the Kutastha and others. Who are these others? The others are the differentiators or the differentiation. So there are people, वो हो सकते हैं जो कूटस्थ होने की अवस्था पर पहुंच गए हैं। एक मिनट प्लीज।
So Richa, when your doorbell rang and I thought it's mine and I had gone to open and I missed key. Who is the what did you say?
We were talking of Kutastha, and we are moving
so
to
who is Kutastha? So that I knew.
Okay, so Kutastha is that who can see that thread of intelligence in everything without any differentiation, without any priorities, without any comparison. Is this becoming clear, Sarita ji? So
yes, I got
yeah. So now moving ahead, Rishi explains who is Antaryamin, and he says, when standing as the means of realizing the real nature of the Kutastha and others, and who are these others? Which are the differentiations by virtue of possessing limiting adjunct. Now he is even coming to define where is this differentiation coming from. We said that the one who is able to see the undifferentiated thread of intelligence. Now Rishi is trying to explain where does the differentiation coming from. He is saying the differentiation comes the moment you possess the limitations, the moment you define yourself with limitations, the moment you define everything else with boundaries, the moment you limit anything into finiteness. So, when standing as the means of realizing the real nature of the Kutastha and others, which are differentiations by virtue of possessing limiting adjuncts, the Atman manifests itself as interwoven in all bodies, like the thread through a string of jewels, and then it is called the Antaryamin, the internal rulers. So there are various segments to it, various parts to understanding Antaryamin. The first thing is that realizing the real nature of the Kutastha and the others. So irrespective of the fact that one who has realized himself and the one who has not. So the moment one does not even see differentiation as that. And who has not realized? The unrealized one, the quality of the unrealized one will be that he will look everything in boundaries. Something begins, something ends. Anything which has a beginning and end, both in terms of time and space. So anything that begins in time and ends in time, or anything which starts somewhere has got certain area, certain volume to it. So the space criteria. The moment any of these two or both time and space constraint come into picture, come into perception, differentiation comes into picture. Because differentiation is numbers. And numbers is if one has to be there, if two has to be there, one has to begin and one has to end. And then only this progressive numbers can continue. Differentiations can continue. So the Kutast is, so the one is able to see both the real nature of the Kutast and the others. The Atman manifests itself as interwoven in all bodies, like the thread through a string of jewels. So this is a beautiful analogy given, wherein the Rishi says that there is a thread and you have so many jewels into it. If you look at each jewel, each one of them has got specific characteristics. Each one of them has got different color, shape, different weight, mass, different, they shine differently. So they all look so different. And the moment one is not really looking at those differences, but is able to look at that thread that unites everything, then it is called the internal ruler, the Antaryaman. What does this apply to us? How do we understand this in our everyday life? This exactly is the state wherein the Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam happens. Because now, what do you say when you say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam? That world is my family, existence is my family. How does existence becomes the family? By the definition of family, you say when I relate with the other person, not as other, but as extension of my own self. So who is the daughter, who is the son, who is the parent, who is the spouse, who is the kidkin? They are none but extension of me. And that is why if something happens to them, I feel painful because I do not perceive them. And this is again on certain level. After all, finally, even I perceive myself as separate from them. But for the sake of example, you see them, you see a connection with all of them. You see a oneness with all of them at certain level. The moment this oneness expands with the entire cosmos, the state of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam happens, wherein you say that the world, the existence is my family. To be able to say that, one has to be, if we keep looking at our petty issues, our likes, dislikes, I approve this, I disapprove this, I agree to this, I disagree to this. And I am not able to step back to all these agreements, disagreements, all these likes, dislikes, all these preferential things. The preference does not cease in my life. Till the time this does not happen, the internal ruler in me will not be functional. I would not be operating from that internal state of mind. I will be operating from how the environment wants me to operate. And this is where it is about within or outside. Is this becoming clear? We move ahead? Or is this confusing?
Can you elaborate it more, please?
So what's the specific question you will have, Saritaji? Where do you really exactly are looking at elaboration?
This you said like our all the relatives and whoever our dear ones or near ones are is our reflection kind things, no? They are the extension of us.
Correct.
Like what we should understand with that.
So I picked that up as an example. So let's look at how we live. At one level, it is about just us. I am there. It's me, right? The next level to that is our inner circle, the closed ones, whom we define as family. Who are they? They are nothing but our own extension. They become part of our identities. I am a mother because I have a child. I am a wife because I have a spouse. I am a daughter because I have parents. I am a sister because I have got sibling. So they are extension of me on a little grosser level. So when and that is why if something happens to them, why does the immediate family runs? If something happens to anybody, you might be in financial distress, you might be in emotional distress, you might be in physical distress, whatever. But the first people to support is the family. Why so? Because there is a connection that we live with when it comes to family. When you expand it even more, so there is me, the next level with whom I connect is the family. You expand it a little more, you will have circles of friends. So then there are friends who are very close, who are like extension of family. A lot of things that you share with the family, you will be comfortable sharing with them also. And of course, there are certain things that you only share with them. That is also all right. But in the immediate need, the family comes first and then the friends comes. Is that not our levels? The moment you expand yourself even more, then you expand yourself to the society you live in, to the city you live in. You expand yourself even more, then you identify with your state. So for example, I live in a society in Indrapuram in Uttar Pradesh. So the first thing that I identify is with myself. My next level of identification is with the family members. My next level of identification is with the friends. My next level of identification is that, hey, we stay in the same society. My next level of identification is with those people whom you also stay in Ghaziabad. I also stay in Ghaziabad. Have you seen this? You go outside of your hometown, you go someplace and you meet somebody of your hometown and you do not know them. You still feel connected. Does it happen or not? So if you stay in Mumbai and
Yes.
you go to Bangalore and you go to Hong Kong and there you find somebody from Mumbai, you see what kind of happiness comes in. Oh, you are also from Mumbai. Where in Mumbai? And the entire conversation is then based on where you are, from the same place, even though there is no connection as such. So there is an expansion that is happening. Now, when this expansion comes to a level that now you identify with the entire cosmos. So after your state, then comes the country, then comes the continent, and then it will be the world, then it is Earth, and then it can go ahead to cosmos. So the moment you expand yourself so much that you do not identify with yourself, but your identification is with the entire existence. In certain way, this also means that there is no identification, because what do you mean by entire existence? Whatever you put your hands on, whatever you put your fingers on, you identify with that, which is actually nothing or everything. Getting this? And the moment this level of identification or connection happens, then there is an internal ruler which is operating, because this connection is impossible without seeing that internal thread which is moving in everything and everywhere. For example, let's say there is river Ganga, and this Ganga flows, and at one place it has got 10 tributaries of itself. So there are 10 branches of its of Ganga which expands into different directions. Although they are tributaries in a certain way, they are all independent rivers. Yet we say this is a part of Ganga itself, and we give it equivalent respect and love, and the feeling remains the same as that of Ganga's. It does not change because it is not Ganga, it is known as Jamuna or whatever or whatever. So there is this connection. You still know that the water that this particular tributary, which is a river in itself, has, is no less pure than that of Ganga. And there is this instant connection. So the moment one starts to see that connection in everything around, then one is able to see that common thread which the Rishi is calling as Antaryaman, or the internal ruler. Is this now becoming a little clearer?
What is the word? Antaryam ki antaryami?
Antaryamin.
Yamin.
Antaryaman. The one who rules from within. That is the meaning. Okay. Moving ahead, when the Atman shines forth, absolutely free from all limiting adjuncts, brilliant as a homogeneous mass of consciousness in its nature of pure intelligence, independent, then it is spoken of as the entity of Tao and the Pratyagaman, which is the inner self. So now the Rishi is moving from all the differentiation, variety, vividita towards oneness. And now he is defining what is the meaning of Pratyagaman, which is the inner self. Pratyagaman is moving within. Yeah, that is what Pratyagaman means. Okay, I was being reminded of Tathagat. So how is Rishi defining Pratyagaman? The Rishi says, when the Atman shines forth, now when the Atman is shining forth, of course it is shining with its own quality. Absolutely free from all limiting adjuncts. And that is the quality of Atman, that it has no limitation. It does not see boundaries. It does not see limitations. Brilliant. So there is this brilliance in it as a homogeneous mass of consciousness in its nature of pure intelligence. So this is how Atman has been defined. These are various words with which Atman has been defined. It is independent. It does not depend on anything, which is, it has moved out of the duality of subject and object. So the subject depends on the existence of object. The object depends on the existence of subject. So I might say that, okay, I see something because I'm able to see it, and that is the object. So the existence of that object for me is dependent on if I am able to see it or not. But the interesting part is, for you to know that your eyes can see, you need some object. So seeing is as much dependent on the object. The one who is seeing, the subject, hence is as much dependent. The existence of the subject is as much dependent on the existence of object. This is what we call as the subject-object duality. They both exist together, although they look different, although they look complementary. But the Atman is beyond that, and hence it is free from the subject-object duality, and hence is independent. There is no codependence. In our everyday parlance, in our everyday life, we talk of collaboration so much. We talk of supporting each other so much. We talk of existing together, codependency so much. Why so? We talk of all that because we perceive each other as different. Even right now, when we are talking of all this, a lot of this is on the intellectual level. But if this allows you to become little easy with your likes and dislikes and everything through which you create that differentiation of yourself with the others, then you can actually know that something has started to happen in you. The moment you relate with the other person, not because of the differentiations, but you relate with the other person because of that internal common thread, then you know that something has started to happen in you. A movement in the direction of spirituality has started to happen in you. So this, the Rishi says, one, it is absolutely free from all limiting adjuncts. Two, it shines brilliantly. Three, it shines as the homogeneous mass of consciousness in its nature of pure intelligence. And the moment there is homogeneous mass of consciousness and there is pure intelligence, which means, after all, it is the pure intelligence in everything and everybody which is manifesting in so many variety of ways. The fourth quality is it remains independent. When these things are shining forth, then it is spoken of an entity of thou. Thou is Tvam. So now the Rishi is actually moving towards clarifying the meaning of Tat Tvam Asi. So there are 4 Mahavakya in mostly known as. The 4 Mahavakyas are, the first is called Aham Brahmasmi. We all have heard of it quite a lot. The second is Tattvam Asi. The third is called Pragyanam Brahma. And the fourth is called Ayam Atma Brahma. All 4 of them mean the same thing, which is I am Brahma. Tattvam Asi literally means I am that. So it needs to define who is this I.
Hi, Richa, can you listen?
Yeah.
Hi, Richa.
Yeah, Sarita ji.
Richa, you were lagging for me. So can you repeat third and fourth?
Okay. So there is Aham Brahmasmi. The second is Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. The third is Ayam Atma Brahma. I am that. The fourth is Pragyanam Brahma. The Paravidya or the real knowledge is Brahma. So they are called Mahavakya because all 4 of them are signifying to the ultimate nature of self. And that is why they are called Mahavakya. Maha is big and Vakya is the sentence. So a sentence that talks of the grandeur, the magnificence of self, hence are called as Mahavakya. And I'm explaining this because we have Anushri with us. Anushri comes from Sri Lanka, so I'm not sure, Anushri, how much of Hindi you understand. So that's the reason I'm explaining the meaning of it. So now the Rishi is moving towards explaining the meaning of
Thank you very much, Richa. I'm listening. I'm not able to switch on the camera though. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. The Rishi is moving towards explaining the meaning of one of the Mahavakya, which is that thou are. That you are. Tattvam Asi. Now, in that, he has explained who is this thou or tvam, tat tvam asi. Who is this tvam? So he says this tvam is, which also is called as pratyagaman or inner self. So the moment you start to live in infinite, you start to live in pure intelligence, you start to live in as that independent self which is devoid of duality, then you start to live in your inner self. The thou in you starts to shine. Is this confusing? Or shall we move ahead?
We can move ahead. It's
Go
okay.
ahead. It's okay.
The voice is breaking in between. Is it for me only or for
No,
everybody?
this is
It's
yeah.
breaking. That's what
Richa,
I have asked. No?
वो ना तुम्हारा
The voice
voice
is
थोड़ा
breaking a
बहुत
lot, Richa, in
it is
between.
breaking
The
and
internet connection shows as
it is not very
unstable at
seamless.
times. Yeah, the internet connection shows as wait, let me just change
Yeah.
the internet connection then. Let me put on the
You can connect with some other.
despite the fact that no other device is connected right now, the internet is unstable. Yeah. So let me know if this stays better. Okay, so the Rishi has explained who is this thou, and then moves ahead to explain Brahma. So Tattvam Asi, you are that, thou you are, who you are, Brahma, which now Rishi is explaining. He says that which is Satya or the reality, Jnana or knowledge, Ananta or the infinite, and Ananda or bliss is Brahma. That is the definition of Brahma that Rishi is giving. Now, if we look at each of the words, just paying a little attention to them. Satya or reality, there is no personal reality here. We talk of this is my reality, in my reality, and this is how the corporate world talks. What is your reality? What is their reality? What is my reality? But in the world of Vedanta, when you go to Vedanta, they will call all these personal realities as false, asatya. Why? Because the personal realities, it exists only for one person at a time. It does not exist for everybody, irrespective of space, time, and all that. And the moment there is this division, the moment it becomes untrue, it becomes false. So to define Brahma, the word chosen is Satya. And what is Satya? Satya is that which always is. Anything that can, so you to understand the world of mind or to understand mind, catch hold of these two words, space and time. Anything that exists in space or time or space and time, they all are asatya, untruth or false. This is how the Upanishad will define them. It does not matter that this book is there for me right now. I cannot call it as Satya because this came into existence in time, and with time it will fade away also. It will become again the earth. So the Rishi will never call it as truth. What is truth? That which is independent of space and time. That which exists despite the fact that anything else exists or not. That which is independent of all is beyond duality. So to define Brahma, the words that Rishi has chosen is that which is Satya. So that which always exists. Jnana or knowledge. So that which one always knows. So that self-realization, the knowledge of self-realization. Ananta, the infinite. And the interesting part is that the moment mind would talk of infinite, it will create a boundary very far-fetched. So if my boundary is at billions and billions, maybe there is some billions of billions of billions. But this is how mind will function. Mind always will function in finiteness. It can never go infinite. And that is what its limitation is also. But Brahma is that which is infinite, which is beyond limitation. And Brahma is Ananda or bliss. There is actually no comparative word to the word Ananda in English, yet bliss is something that we loosely use. Happiness definitely is not the word, because with happiness comes the sadness, which is the dual opposite of it. And so when one is really happy about whatever, know that the sadness exists. It is just that one is not experiencing it at the same time, but that definitely exists. And then there is a state which is beyond, wherein there is happiness irrespective of whatever the condition is. I may be depressed, I may be sad, I may be crying. There still is Ananda at the backdrop. There still is bliss at the backdrop. So on the screen of bliss, the play of happiness, sadness, and all that is on. So that screen is what is called bliss. And bliss is independent of any emotion that one may think. Bliss is not an emotion hence. It is not at all an emotion. It is a state of mind which is surrendered in self, which is not counting things, which is not counting experience, which is not counting numbers, which is not counting happenings, which is just ease, just being. So that Rishi is indicating as the definition of Brahma. Are we good till here? Okay.
Yes, Richa.
Going ahead, the Rishi says the reality is the indestructible. So now he's defining what reality is. Reality is indestructible. So which is, hence it is independent of time and space. That which, when name, space, time, substance, and causation are destroyed, and still it dies not. Look at the kind of adjectives that is being used. Can you even think of something of this kind? When there is no name, when there is no space, when there is no time, when there is no substance, and there any reason of causation means how it comes into existence. When all these things are destroyed, and yet there is something that dies not, yet there is something that remains. That is called as indestructible. which cannot be distracted in any way, which is the Brahman. Think of that. It's so very difficult. Even, I mean, these words remain like that on the intellectual level for most of us. For these words to penetrate in our everyday life, the one thing that is a must to happen is we start learning to live in something called as silence. When we allow that space of silence to ourselves, even for 10 minutes, then you will first start to see how thought happens in your mind. The way they come, they bombard, so many different thoughts, all coming at the same time, all pulling you in a different direction. And it looks so difficult to get rid of that. So that's the first thing that we start to witness. And then we start to witness slowly and gradually who is even watching the thoughts. And that this happens when we do not engage with the thoughts. The moment there is engagement, the entire silence is gone for a toss. But if you can hold yourself in that engagement, then something beautiful starts to happen. You will see that the need to talk, the need to share, that drops. Sarita ji, how it happens when you use that singing bowl, and at the end, when it just stops, there is umpteen silence, as if even the thoughts have gone away for a little while, for a moment.
Yes, ma'am, it happens many a time. And that's why people are really enjoying these sessions. I am saying it is basically for healing, for the physical pain and all. But people are really want to use it for, that experience when thoughtless mind. So they are
And
coming to me for that.
Imagine how beautiful it will be that without desiring that experience, I still can be in that state.
Sure.
Now, I am dependent on that happening for that state of mind, that state of silence to happen in my life.
Correct.
And when the mind becomes silent, the need of singing bowl goes away. When the mind becomes silent, the need of looking forward to any experience goes away. In fact, this is the precise reason why we want to repeat experience, any experience. You would notice that that experience has given you some sense of Aham Brahmasmi. You may not be able to define it, but it does give you. And that is why people keep rushing behind experience and experience. Yeah, so I think I'll stop here and we will take it ahead from here in the next session. If there is anything that anybody wants to discuss, and if anybody is short of time. Yeah, Anushri. Sarita ji, you wanted to go, so you can.
I have a question about this experience, why people rush on experience, like more clarity on that. Like, why do people rush for experience?
So let's take an example, and I'm going very gross right now. Let's take an example that I want to go to the malls on the weekends. What does the mall give me? The mall is one giving me a break from my monotonous life. And then when I am wanting to go there, I'm basically wanting to forget myself. Now it's a different matter that instead of forgetting myself, I actually gather more of myself. But the real desire actually is, in fact, anything anybody wants to, the real desire behind that is, Anushri, we want to forget ourselves. We do not want to keep remembering who am I, all the identities that we hold. And In forgetting yourself lies great relief. Relief from carrying the burden of holding the image of those identities true. Because the moment I hold an identity, there is an expectation, there is a responsibility that now I prove that identity to be true. And that need may not be very obvious, very pronounced. That's a very subtle need. This is how identities play in our minds. If I say that I am a good coach, there will be a need that in every conversation I prove that I am a good coach. I must write articles like that. I must keep sharing experiences like that, which proves I am a good coach. Because mind wants validation. That's where its safety and security lies. So it wants to
Thank you.
go
Thank
ahead.
you so much for bringing that, because this is something that I have been having a self-talk within myself, like why the world wants to always prove with rewards and awards, and who, I mean, I know who I am, right? So but the world is asking, show me, prove me, who are you, prove me, right? So this has been my personal struggle, Richa, actually, right?
Yeah.
But my authentic self is saying you don't have to prove anybody. You know who you are, what you can do, capable of. But I live in a world where it's asking for proof. What are your thoughts based on the Vedantas?
Vedanta will even say that who you know you are is actually false. That again is certain identity. What is your skill and all that? Any skill can be acquired depending upon how much of time you need to spend in there and how much of practice you need to do. Some skill for somebody could be more difficult, some skill for somebody could be easier, but everything can be acquired given you devote sufficient time. So Vedanta will say you need to come to that silence because you are the expression of that silence. And the moment you start living in that silence, you will see that your unnecessary activities on the periphery will drop down. And even if people do not validate you, you will still be all right. It will not matter that any posting of yours has not received thumbs up, congrats and all that. It will not simply matter. And when even you engage in showing all that as some accomplishments or achievements, you would know that you are just playing the role. They are not something that define you. They are not something which is important for your existence. But for the world, if this is how it plays, okay, take it. How does that matter? And you will be free of even that process of proving. So you may even engage in the process of proving and you will not have any burden of that. This is how then you will start operating. You getting this point? Is it confusing?
Yes, got it. I think I have kind of come to that point of, okay, maybe sometimes if somebody is saying, okay, let's do this, I might do it, but I know deep inside me that I'm happy with what I am and what I'm doing. That feeling is there inside. But I just wanted to know in the this context,
Yeah. And even going ahead, who knows who I am? He will go to Maharshi Raman, this is how he'll talk. He'll say, who knows who you are? Obviously, there has to be some entity who knows you are like that. When you say, I know who I am, who is this I who knows who you are? And Vedant will say, go and find out who is this who knows who you are. And then something very beautiful happens. Then even the need to say, I know who I am, that drops. And then you will, it is so beautiful. You will simply smile without any explanation, without any context, without any need. And all that remains is just that peace. It's okay. So that is even a step ahead. So in the language of Vedanta, we talk of.
Is it kind of an emptiness stage? Is it kind of an emptiness stage, Richa? Like you feel like nothing. Is that a feel of emptiness?
So then there is again a question: who is feeling empty? If this is where in the world of Vedanta we refute the entire concept of experience. To experience, there has to be an experiencer. Who is the experiencer? An experiencer is the identity. And that is where the whole problem starts to happen. If you can stay without defining even the experience, then something beautiful has started to happen.
Right.
Mind
That
always wants to define, because that's what identity does. This is how it protects its identity. And that is why experience is given so much of value. And experience is always based on who am I in terms of all that I know and I do not know. So if I am a coach and I go to a coaching summit or some grand such event, I may experience a lot of wonderful things. But if I am somebody from, say, systems background, sales background, I will not experience the same thing in the same intensity, in the same way as the coach has experienced it. The event is the same. But because the experiences are different, hence the final experience or the outcome is different. And that's where the question, who is this who wants to experience? And who is this who is valuing the experience? They all come into picture. So to the world, go ahead and talk of your experience, because this is how the world operates. To the world, I'll go and say, yes, I am the speaker and I conduct Upanishad class, etc., etc. But when it comes to my own being, the peace, where I am operating from, the space that I am operating from, I would not come from those identities. The existence of these identities will cease. And that's where authenticity happens. If one comes from who I am, you will actually see that authenticity will get compromised. Just be a little more observant and you will be able to catch it up. It's very easy to see. Yeah, any more questions? Any sharing?
That's
anything?
fine. Something to reflect on. Thank you for sharing your view.
It's wonderful. You just joined, be in the journey and see what all unfolds for you. On just one day, not everything can be captured, because the world of mind in which we live is very, very vast. Even though it is finite, it is very, very vast. Yeah. Okay. So if that is done, then let's do the Shanti part. And so those who know can chant along with me. Other can just be with it. Sit straight, close your eyes. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.